Welcome to the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic. My name is Jenny Nodelman. I'm the Marketing and Events Officer for the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic. Before I get into this evening's talk, just mentioning some housekeeping things for anyone who might have this as their first visit to the Maritime Museum. Where you came in through the admissions area desk, there are gender-neutral washrooms between the Maritime Heritage Store and the admissions desk. There are men's and ladies' washrooms past the admissions desk when you leave the small craft gallery to your right. We are open for the evening. Hopefully you know that on Tuesday nights all year round are our free community evenings from 4 till 8 p.m. We also support Feed Nova Scotia to curb food insecurity, so if you would like to make a donation, there's a tip tap at the front desk. I would ask if everyone could have their cell phones on silent, please, as well. That would be greatly appreciated. And I know there's folks sitting up above, which is great, so we do have visitors in the museum that are wandering about our exhibits as well, so welcome. So I'd like to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are part of the continuing generations as treaty people to respect, sustain, and nurture oceans and land for the future generations to come. Here in Mi'kma'ki, we are all treaty people. As a Chinese Canadian born on Treaty 6 territory, I invite you to explore our exhibit to my left, Dan Mej Del Gagno How Unique We Still Are. Our gallery that involved Mi'kmaq elders sharing their lived experiences here in Mi'kma'ki. The timeline of the peace and friendship treaties of Mi'kma'ki are also located in the foyer if you'd like to learn more about treaty education and continue your personal journeys as treaty people. So, on to, before we get to tonight's talk, I did want to let you know that we are wrapping up our Tuesday night talks for the spring. Next week, you might have met him coming in. Our very own Andrew Allenbach is going to be speaking of the Bloody Apron, a medicine at sea during the fighting age of sail. That will be at 6:30 next week on May 19th. And then our final talk this spring, as we break for summer, is our fellow museum, Nova Scotia Museum in Lunenburg, the Fisheries Museum of the Atlantic, Hilda Russell, who is curator there. She will be talking about the August Gales. It's the 100th anniversary of that this year, so she will be talking about two significant shipwrecks that happened in 1926. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest, Captain Philip Watson, who oversees the Bluenose II ship and crew. Phil grew up in Mahone Bay sailing small boats, both at Lunenburg Yacht Club and around the bay with his brother Dave. At the age of 16 years of age, Phil joined schooner Raindancer on a trip to Lake Huron. This led to a lifelong passion for life under sail. He joined Bluenose II in spring of 1987 as a deckhand, and has now been captain for 25 years. Phil lives in Mahone Bay with his wife, Krista, and occasionally his 2 university-aged children. So for 25 years, Captain Watson has been at the helm of Bluenose II, with unforgettable adventures for both visitors and crew, and a stalwart mentor and sailing ambassador. Bravo Zulu to Captain Watson, and for being able to be part of our Tuesday night talk this season. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Captain Philip Watson.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. We're good, I think. We'll see how it goes. Good evening, everybody. Good evening to those online. Good. We're all here. I've got a lot of slides to go through. The talk is a year in the life of Bluenose. I've got about 35 or 40 minutes to do it. So as you might imagine, that means it's going to go quickly. Hang tight, buckle in. There'll be a few places where we can all stop and take a breath. So Bluenose II, I'm going to pull back the veil and have a look, and on to slide 3. Are we good? Okay. Sorry, this is the first time that we're broadcasting from here, so we're going to do some technical things, or untechnical, where I'm just going to talk about what slide we're on so that the people broadcasting can keep track of it. Right, so our crew. Leadership is Maggie Osler, who's here this evening. She's our director, and she's assisted by Colin Campbell, our assistant director. We have a director of finance, someone that looks after all our money. We have our storyteller, Emily Solos, who's here this evening, telling our stories. We have a store staff. We have a complete store led by Janet McIsaac. We've got a whole bunch of officers. There's 6 of us that are full-time on the ship. We have Randy Tanner as chief engineer, Gabe St. Denis as chief mate, Dustin Dempsey as second mate, Aaron Sinka as bosun, and the ever-favorite Dale Robarts as a cook. Dale's been with us for 20-odd years now, so I like to say that this is the work of a professional, not amateur work. We have a push boat and traveling museum guy by the name of Greg Inglis, and then we have 14 young people ranging between 19, 26, 27. There's an age in your life there when you approach that time up towards 30 when you realize that standing in the rain is just not that much fun anymore, and that you don't have the pop culture references that a 19-year-old does, so there becomes communication issues, which I suffer from all the time. So who's driving the bus? So we have Maggie. We'd love to see your picture on the screen, I'm sure. Maggie and Colin work at Bluenose World Headquarters. It's an office staff of 2, and with a part-time finance person. And they are in the office 12 months a year. They get weekends off, but they are there pretty much full-time, even when the ship is laid off, and you'll see why, see what's going on. Maggie's in charge of regulatory knowledge and all the applications thereof. She has experience at sea. She's been 20 years with Picton Castle, and then youth camps before that. She's been a lot of work with nonprofits and tall ships. She has board experience and she has fundraising experience. So as we go into the new times for Bluenose II, that becomes more and more important to have those assets. I've gone and jumped a slide. Look at that. We have Colin. Colin's our assistant director. He was 2 years on the ship. So he has a understanding of the culture of the ship, of how we operate and why we operate, which is a big asset to us. Got a Bachelor of Commerce from Dalhousie. He also worked at Lunenburg Yachts in Indian Point as a laborer working there. He was Nova Scotia Boat Builders Outreach Officer. So he's been into schools, he's been building boats with young people, and again, that's an asset to us. And he also sails and maintains his own Bluenose sloop, just like the one right here. So he's got a good idea of what it takes to maintain a wooden vessel. So he's in charge of keeping broad strokes, looking at social media, at comments, at resources. He sits on the hiring committee and he does all the calling for reference checks. He oversees harbor cruises and their charters. He oversees the store, alumni activities, and he's our standby push boat operator and drone pilot. So lots of wide, varied things there. Emily Solos, who likes to hide behind the camera. She's our principal storyteller. She's the person, when you read on social media, she's the person that films it, she's the person that edits it, she's the reason that you don't see me all the time on social media. So she's the person that does all of this and puts it online. She sits down with Maggie and Colin and they come up with a storyline that they want to tell over the next week or the next month. And that may be what's going to happen in the store, that may be what's happening with the crew. Emily was also 2 years on the ship, so it makes it really, again, a big asset to us that Emily has been through the whole process. And so when we're talking about what the crew are doing, she understands because she's been there and done it. She's also the co-founder of Lemonade Communications. So that's her little business now. She started with us doing social media in-house, and she's branched out and taken her skills and offered them to other people. Val Tanner, Val's Director of Finance. She does payroll for a staff of 30, is that right? 30 people. She's responsible for all the audits, accounts payable and receivable. I think there's something like 13,000 hats coming into the store this week. So we have to stock the whole store, and Val's got to keep track of money coming in, going out, plus all the money that we spend on the ship. Right, so seasons change. We're going to go back to the fall of 2024. And you can see Maggie and I are sitting here a bit ragged. We've been through the process through the year, and we're starting in the fall to look at what's going to happen the next year. In that fall season, we're looking at long and short-term maintenance that's going to be done on the ship, starting to talk about the ads for the crew that are going to go up, what's going to happen in the store, what the schedule might be, if there's any regulatory things that are going to come in, creep into our sphere. And then Maggie will have meetings with the Lunenburg Marine Museum Society, Province of Nova Scotia, CCTH, ABS, which is the American Bureau of Shipping, the Accessibility Committee, the Bluenose Committee. Happily, I do not sit on all those committees, and I'm not involved in all that stuff. But that is all within the purview of what happens in the fall. We do get to do some fun stuff. We get to go and judge heritage fairs every once in a while, and get to see what the young people are doing. Love to see them do the Bluenose stuff. I was disappointed to see this year that St. Mary's is not able to have their sort of provincial heritage fair. I think it's a really important thing. Planning. So before the crew show up, before we hire the crew, we have to interview process. Each deckhand probably goes through a 45-minute interview that we sit down and tell them what the ship is about, what they're going to be doing, and try and figure out what they are and what they're about, and if they've got something to offer us, and if we've got something to offer them. We have a huge number of inspections that are done before we sail. We look at all our long and short-term maintenance, so that could be anything from engine maintenance to we've got a stanchion with a bit of softwood in it that we're going to have to do something about. We have a freezer dive this year. It's the whole big system of a ship that we have to go through everything and try and make sure that all that work is done by June 1st by way of sail. So schedule. People start writing to the ship probably 2 years ahead of time. 2 years, and can you come and visit us at this time? So that could be anything from Terrence Bay or Whitehead are having a special celebration, or it could be Sail 250 in Boston or New York. Those people are all reaching out to us. And so we have to sit down and work out what it is that we can attend, what are the ones that we can put off for a couple of years, what are the ones that are only happening once, and we have to go that time. We'll look at seasonal weather trends. Of course, as the owners, the province has, if they say you're going to be here at this time, then we're going to be there at that time because they own the ship and that's what we do. We'll also look, there's lots of places that think they've got a great big wharf and think, oh, we can bring the Bluenose in here, it would look great. And there's 10 feet of water there. Or there's not a turning circle for us to go in. And we look at Lunenburg here on my left. That long, narrow channel is 230 feet wide. So my turning circle to do a 180-degree turn is 600 feet across. So I know when I enter a channel like that, the only place I'm going is to the other end of that channel. I'm not turning around halfway and coming back out again. That's just not going to happen. I'll be aground. And same as when you're in the waterfront in Lunenburg and you see all that beautiful water out laying towards the golf course, none of that's for me. I've got a ship length and a half off the end of the wharf, and that's about it. So that comes into our schedule, is like, can we actually go to these places that people want us to attend? Regulatory oversight. And we sail in a sea of paperwork. Often people will think that, it's the Bluenose, just chuck a couple of people on board, let's go for a sail. And that's about as far from the truth as you could ever possibly imagine. Even for us to go from one end of the harbor to the other, we'll have a passage plan laid out. We'll have places that we're going to, if things don't work out, this is a wharf that we can go to. And plus every piece of equipment and every officer and every deckhand on the ship have to be inspected. So, life rafts, bunker gear, fire gear, medical gear, climbing harnesses, all our radio equipment, our personal radio licenses, our personal health, all the engine equipment, everything is inspected before we can ever leave the wharf. This year there's a new system coming in, a safety management system, which is going to increase our paperwork probably a third more paperwork to do. So when you think of getting on a boat and just going out for a sail, it just doesn't happen. If you can think of a pleasure yacht that has 2 telex machines on board, then but yet there we are, we have to have that. We also are inspected with drills. The Our regulatory body, ABS, will come and watch our man overboard drills, they'll watch our fire drills, they'll watch our abandoned ship drills, they'll watch us anchor, and they make sure that we're safe with the crew. You have to realize that of the 14 young people for the last couple of years, 10 of them are brand new. They have never stepped foot on a boat in their lives. So that becomes a big thing as time goes on. We have 40 companies that support us, that we hire, that sell us things. Companies for the engine room. CME was on board today. Ocean Gear was on board today. There's a refrigeration company on board today. BMR, who's photographed here, sell us a ton of sandpaper, varnish, paint. Some of the stuff we just can't do. We're just not smart enough to do. Picture here is of a gentleman by the name of Dave Evans who runs DCE Electronics. That's an alarm panel that he's looking at on the left-hand side. And I tell you, I've got skills, but I'm qualified to open it up, but that's about where it stops. So Dave can come in and look at all that stuff and help us with that. We also have local shipwrights, Old Town Boat Works, and Paul Basket there on the left is a tremendous asset to us. And he's there in Lunenburg. He's got a boat shop in Lunenburg, and he can come and work on the ship. He can pull a raft up beside the ship and help us right there. We also have local divers. That picture of Trevor starfished in the water, it was about -5 outside that day, and the water was not much warmer, so nice to have the local guys around. So we've done the first part of the season. We've done the winter. We've interviewed crew. We've interviewed store staff. We've got a crew together that we think we're going to do. April 1st is always the day. We start April 1st with a target of the first week of June to have the ship ready. That's a ton of work to do, as you will see. So the first days and weeks aboard, the crew, I like to think that they're nervous. I like to think that they don't know what they're doing, and I like to think that that's okay. I went to see a Jeremy Dutcher concert the other day, and instead of the traditional land acknowledgement, they came out and did the whole speech in Mi'kmaq. No English. And he went away, and I sort of felt uncomfortable with that. And then Jeremy came out in the second half and said, "You didn't understand that. It's okay. Sit in your uncomfortableness." That's my crew, right? They come here. There's a whole new language that they haven't learned. They don't know anything. So we teach them how to wash dishes and clean toilets. And I think the other day they had an hour-and-a-half lecture on how to use a hand scraper. So it's a tremendous amount of knowledge. And I'd love for them to come aboard unsure of what's happening, and to drop their barriers and to be willing to welcome new knowledge in. Maggie coined a great term a couple of years ago called the fire hose of knowledge, and that is indeed what it is. So the first week we dig into the rigging shed. The rigging shed is a building on Irving land. It's just big enough to put our 4 gaff in, just long enough, so 30 feet. It's crammed full in the winter. We call it schooner in a box. So come that first week of April, we work our way out. We clear a rid space. We sand and varnish the 3 spars, the four gaff, the 4 boom, and the jumbo boom that are small enough to be in there, and get them out on the wharf. And then that allows us 15 feet of space by 35 feet long. And then once that's done, people are starting to be more comfortable. They're starting to understand when breakfast is, where the heads are, what's going on. And so we come into April. April is a tremendous month for us, often snowing, often raining, often too cold to be on the ship. So we work in the shed. So the first week after we do those spars, there's 125 blocks. Each wooden block is taken apart, greased, inspected, put back together, 3 coats of varnish. So all the little coin plates are taken off. They're often, every couple of years we'll take them off and lacquer them, shine them, and put them back on again. They're all labeled as to which block they go on. It's a great time for the crew to get to learn each other. They came not knowing anybody, so it's a great time for them to form friendships that I hope will last for the rest of their lives. You can see there the blocks are laid out. It's a big pile of blocks. It's huge. Bottom right there you can see a varnish. I don't know if it shows up on your screen, but there's a piece of varnish there with just massive drips in it. We're trying to teach the crew as we're doing this, as we're varnishing everything, how to varnish, how to hold your brush, how to clean your brush. It just goes on and on and on and on. Out towards the end of April, you can see there we're varnishing blocks. The name boards are being painted. Hopefully we get a couple of days underneath the tent that are nice enough that we can go out and start to scrape the bulwarks and start to do work on the ship. Comes to May. So May, we can hopefully get on the wharf, get on the raft. We'll scrape and paint the hull. Scraping the hull generally means that they call it raft life, that the crew stand on the raft for a week. And they scrape all the loose paint off, they go back, they sand it, prime it, sand it, prime it, sand it, and then do top coats. I think this year we're just about finished the top coats now. You can see they are on the raft. Also start working aloft in the beginning of May. Today, the mate had a couple of deckhands up aloft and they're hanging the fore rigging up. So it's going. Work continues, it's dirty work, there is no glory in this. Often for the new deckhands, they don't understand why they're doing this. There's no payoff for them except to get up the next morning and work again. They're working 10, 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Nobody gets a day off for the first 2 weeks. After that, the deckhands get them off in a rotation, probably 1 day off every 2 weeks. The mate only gets 1 day off every 3 weeks, so he doesn't hear any complaints from them about that whatsoever. Occasionally the boss comes down for an inspection on the name boards. And the work continues. Rainy days, we are in the shed. Nice days, we're on the ship. Uprigging, so again, 14 young people, 10 of them are brand new. So the 4 that were back last year, from last year, this year, we're up aloft today. And the young people that haven't done anything before, we're hauling the blocks up to them and trying to figure out how this all worked. This photo is a Lenwag photo. He asked me for 2 years to take this photo before I find, because it's a tremendous amount of work for us. This is sort of our idea of what it takes to put the ship together. I think he called this the biggest boat kit in the world. So you may recognize this photo. This is an identical photo of this from 1921 from a McCaskill, taken in the fog in Lunenburg, bending on the jibs. It's the same thing, same experience, same board. So training. We've been talking a bit about training. After the workday is done for the crew, they're finished, they've scraped, they've sanded, they've varnished all day long, then the mates will put on seminars for them in the evenings, probably from 7 to 8:30 or something. They do parts of the boat, knots and nomenclature, skills that they're going to have to learn that they're going to need in the next series of what they do. Often what happens on the ship is, we start with, say, varnishing a spar, and you get really good at varnishing a spar, and then we don't do that anymore. And we service blocks, and you get good at servicing a block, and then we don't do that anymore. So for them, it's an ever-changing thing. It's an ever-changing life with, again, the fire hose of knowledge. You can see how far in depth we're lucky. Our chief mate, I think, attended a school of fine arts for a while, and he's a great artist. So the knowledge that they get from him, excuse me, in boat structure is a lot better than the stick figures that I used to draw, I can guarantee it. You can see in the top right, there's the bosun teaching them knots. We're trying to teach them the knots that they'll do it unconsciously. And that's for someone who hasn't done a lot with their hands, it's difficult at times. We also bring in outside providers. The crew have just finished a 4-day marine emergency duty course where they physically fight a fire. They physically get into an emergency suit and get in the harbor. They get into life rafts and turn them over so that we know that they have got a base level of knowledge when we take them out to sea and we start training them on how to do things sort of with the Bluenose spin on it. Not all training goes well. You can see we start anchoring at the dock and we managed to catch a tire. That was a new one for the mates. We have caught lobster traps. We've caught an anchor once. We caught an anchor in Mahone Bay last year, actually. Again, the crew at this time were doing 1 day a week in the galley. So we have to teach them how to wash dishes. We have to teach them how to clean toilets. We have to teach them how to wipe down and make sure that an area is clean and tidy. And there's a lot of us living in a closed space. So we want to make sure that it's healthy living for all of us. And again, I can't stress, I can't explain how we have to teach them everything. How to get onto a raft, how to get off a raft, to make sure that they're wearing PPE at all times. And then you go into the normal stuff and how to furl a sail. You put this sail on, you've learned how to bend it on, but then it's just a lump of cloth sitting on the thing, so then you have to furl it up over and over and over and over again so they have muscle memory. First day out. Last year was a fantastic first day out. The Pride of Baltimore showed up under full sail in the bay. Captain Miles wanted us to put sail up, and we're not ready for that yet. This is our first time off the wharf. So when we go out for the first day, always drills, put on your immersion suit, let's practice fighting a fire, let's launch the rescue boat, and then we'll start with the smallest sail, the jumbo, and we'll put that up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down until we're sick of it. And if it's going okay, then we'll put the second sail, and we'll put a jib up, and we'll put the two of them up and down and up and down and up and down. And we keep working that and keep building on that, and we'll only do it to the point where we're comfortable with. If we think that we're overstretching the crew, then we'll stop and we'll go back and start again. We're starting to work towards public access now. We've got a regulatory inspection coming up, and then we also have, we're going to start doing harbor tours. So we're starting to teach the crew, not only do you have to know how to furl a sail, but you have to do it in a timely manner, in a safe manner, being aware of what's going on around you. And then we're starting to do the small things on the ship. We're starting to shine the brass, we're starting to scrub the decks every morning. Often at this time of the year, we go out, we sail for the morning, and come back in, and then there's more painting and varnishing to be done. You can see drills, forever drills. Every time we leave the port, the crew have their immersion suits on. That's slide 50. Are we in the same place? So you can see, we go as far as, you can see there's a picture there of the crew all in their wet gear. We make sure that the crew all know how to put their wet gear in, that their pants are not tucked into their boots. Just it's simple things, but if you've never done it, you never know. And then again, come back in. Obviously, we're touching up the scroll work for a bit there. So then sailing season. So ABS has come, they've inspected us, they've watched us do our drills. They've said that we're safe to be public facing, that we're safe to take the ship to sea, that we're safe to have passengers on board. So you can see from this map of Nova Scotia that we've got 16 ports that we've laid out. Is that okay? So this is, again, so Maggie has drawn up a schedule. She's had a rough look at it. She sent it to me. I've done the navigation bits of it. I've sent it back to Maggie. She's changed some things. She sent it back to me. I've sent it back to her. She sends it to the board of the museum. They send it back to her. She sends it back to me. I send it back to her. It goes up to the provinces, to the Minister of CCTH, and sits in his desk for 2 months. Eventually he will sign it and send it back to us. And then that's when it goes online. And then that's when you can start seeing that you can book tickets and things. So first day out this year, we went to Terrence Bay. Had a lovely foggy visit in Terrence Bay, which was great for photographs. And then we did a sail past in Peggy's Cove as well. Love doing sail pasts in Peggy's Cove. It's a chance to put these two icons together, to put the Bluenose and Peggy's Cove together, and the more pictures that are taken at that time. Again, not to ring Mr. Wag's bell, but he took some fantastic photos of us off Peggy's Cove in some fairly heavy winds a couple of years ago. From Terrence Bay, we came into Halifax. This is an eye-opener for the crew. All of a sudden, you're not the only ship in the bay anymore, and you've got big car carriers, and you've got ferries, and the poor guy who's probably never been on the water in Halifax before is up in the bow, doing a bow watch, trying to report all that traffic back to us on the bridge. And so they will be talking about George's Island is in front of us, and there's a ferry coming, and there's a car carrier coming, and it's a busy time. And a chance to visit the museum here and to be with the Sackville and Acadia. That's a special thing. So there's a photo here of us sailing back into Lunenburg with topsails. Again, this is something we have to teach the crew. They're at this stage of the game, they're probably good up to about 20 knots maybe. So fairly good sailing, nothing heavy. But then you throw topsails on top of it, and that means all of a sudden that you lose 4 people that go aloft. Some of those are skilled people. That means the people left on deck have to know even more. If you look at the original Bluenose, sailed with 26 at times, and we're sailing with a crew of 19 or 20 that were perpetually shorthanded, particularly when we're under full sail. There you go, you get a picture of the crew up aloft. Hopefully they're starting to get comfortable at this point in time, that some of them at least are happy to go up aloft and have a basic understanding of when the mates are yelling at them what to do, that they'll know the terminology of the parts. We're doing public cruises at this time. You can see there in the bottom right that they're furling the mainsail, and they've got some help from a tourist. Training goes on. We've got the 4 lowers, we've got some of the topsails. Now we're going to look at the storm trysail and starting to rig for heavy weather. So the crew, that means putting jack lines on the deck, means the crew will have their inflatable life jackets on, that we practice how moving around the ship, secured to the ship, and what to do in heavy weather. And I don't know if can you play this video? Yes? So that's 40, 45 knots of wind and 10 to 15 foot seas. So we're running there with the rider, foresail, and jumbo. I'll be doing 7 or 8 knots. Ship's fairly dry at that stage in that condition. Most people are eating, so that's a positive. If we had to turn around and go the other way, it's a whole different ball game. Third of the crew would be eating maybe, and the rest would be holding on for dear life. So at 10 foot seas is height of eye on the ship. So anything above that, then the waves are starting to be above you. Run from Lunenburg up to Port Hawkesbury for a Festival of the Strait. And I think they were celebrating the windmills there, so it's a great chance for us to go and promote wind power. And then from Port Hawkesbury, we ran down to Canso. And there was a competition between Canso and Port Hawkesbury as to who could have the biggest fleet join us. I think Whitehead won the last time that Canso extended that challenge. So there was drones in the air to make sure that there was no cheating or untoward. The thing that's changed in our moving around the ship is that Bluenose is quite tall. She's 131 feet of air draft. So that means that we're too tall to go into Bredor Lakes, we're too tall to go up the St. Lawrence Seaway, we're too tall to go into the Brooklyn Bridge. And as of last year, we're too tall to pass through the wires on the other side of the Canso Causeway. So that means in Canso, again, 14 deckhands, 10 of them are new. We've got to lower our main topmast down to below the height of our fore topmast, so 118 feet. And then working with Nova Scotia Power, they gave us a box on the chart and a time of tide that we can go through the locks and then go pass underneath the wire. That's going to be a tremendous game changer for our schedule, because it means when you get on the other side into St. George's Bay, your topmast is hanging in the slings and it's not secure. It looks secure, but it's just not. And there's no place to go once you get through the locks except to PEI or Pictou for us. So it's going to change how we monitor and how we move around the province, there's no question. We had a chance to breathe. As we came out of St. George's Bay, we're going to Pictou for the launch of the Hector. Had needed some water in our tanks, and we had a bit of time, so we stopped off Cape St. George and just shut the ship down and made water for 12 hours. Blessing for the crew. Most of them came up and acknowledged sunset and then went and slept if they were on watch. Yeah, it was a lovely evening. It's one of those rare moments, and got a chance to put the drone up and just drift there. But as always, you can't relax too much. There's a Canadian warship that wants to cross our bow from the wrong side. So you've just got to pay attention the whole time. In Pictou, there's alumni there. There's alumni all around the province. Most places we go, we meet people who bring their kids back and their wives or husbands or their families and say, I did this, I was part of this. And every once in a while you get to meet new babies, which is a real joy for us. You can see Sullivan's Fuel there. Part of Maggie and Colin's job is to do all the logistics as we travel around. So we carry 11,000 liters of fuel, straight steaming. That's probably a week, maybe a bit more, depending if we get some sailing in. But otherwise, we've got to meet fuel trucks, we've got to have water trucks, particularly as the infrastructure changes, and there's no longer water on the wharfs. That means that we have to truck water into where we're going. We do have a water maker. It'll keep up with what we're doing, but eventually the crew are going to do laundry, or the crew are going to start to shower or whatever, and that chews up our water. So one of the big joys in Pictou was the launching of the Hector. They invited our crew to go underneath the ship and to wedge up and help launch the ship. And for that crew, that will be a difference, an experience of a lifetime. Is it going to play? Yeah. So this video was taken by one of our alumni who heard the call go out, and he got in to go underneath the ship as well. And the birth of a ship is fantastic, although it was rebirth for her. As you know, on Bluenose, that's a fine line for us. So, are we launched? Yes. Yeah. That was a great thing, and I hope the Hector all the success in the world. I think in a couple of years when she starts sailing, she'll be a great asset, and I hope to see the two ships sailing together. So from Pictou, back around, we stopped in Port Hawkesbury because we left our topmast in the slings, went underneath the wire again, stopped in Port Hawkesbury, put our topmast back up, and then returned to Lunenburg. Probably the foggiest docking I've ever done. As we turned into the dock in Lunenburg, I could not see the wharfs. The bosun could see the wharfs in the bow, and he was telling me whether or not we were between the two finger piers. Yep. That was joyful and exciting, and I was pleased that it was over. One of the things we do is deckhand for a day. So besides public cruises, which are going on in all this time, we do deckhand for a day where you can come out and spend the day with us. And it's not drink coffee with the captain, it is deckhand for a day. So you hang out with the crew, you shine the brass, scrub the decks, and eat with the crew. The cook makes fish cakes and beans, you get a traditional meal. Does the video play in this as well, on the left? So we're very lucky to have Davey and Sky, local influencers, and Mr. Campbell from Peggy's Cove came out and spent some time with us as well. We came out of Prince's Inlet. It was blowing 15 knots, blowing 20 knots, blowing 30 knots, blowing 32 knots, blowing 33 knots. We had the four lowers up and we're going along. And I said to the mate, if it gets to 35, I'm done. Seas are building, getting water on the deck. And he looked at me and said, that was 37. I'm done, take him down. We've got people here that are green. That's beyond even what I'd be pretty comfortable with our crew doing. So, did we play? Yes. Okay. But those people got an experience of a lifetime coming out of Mahone Bay with the deck awash and the schooner pushed hard. From there into Indian Point, again a narrow opening into Indian Point, and we're getting more comfortable with the crew, putting topsails up, knowing that there's a little bay at the end of the time that they can be good enough to take them down when we get into the mess at the other end and have to anchor. Also a chance for them to relax. I call this washing the crew, the great crew wash. Get a chance for them to jump overboard. Again, it's not like a normal boat where you can just go and jump overboard. It's done in a regulated fashion. So there's somebody watching and they'll have to swim together. But it is a chance for them to have some fun. And again, topsails into Lunenburg. We have a thing we call the desktop special where we sail down that little narrow channel I was talking about with sails up. And we call it the desktop special because only someone sitting behind a desk would think that that was a good idea. Back up the coast to Whitehead. The crew marched in the Whitehead Days Parade. And they said to us, do you want a float for the crew? And I said, no, they'll walk. It can't be that long. And it was 2.5 miles or something. So they were, I was not the most popular captain when they were at the end of it, but they tell me that there was enthusiasm. There was enthusiastic at the end as they were at the beginning. And then the name of the company is gone. Stanley and it's gone. Anyway, they launched a new Bluenose oyster, which they farm in Whitehead. Came, brought all kinds of people onto the ship, announced the oyster, and then took my entire crew and took them to the oyster farm and showed them how they farm oysters. And those oysters, Bluenose oysters, and the Nova Scotia oysters are being served on schooners, schooner restaurants down through New York, down through New England, and all over the place. So it's a lovely thing. It was a lovely tribute to the original ship to name an oyster after us. Up to North Sydney, where there's a 100th anniversary. Again, this is one of these places that asked us to come and visit. North Sydney Yacht Club is great to us, the Northern Yacht Club. They allow us, when we're going into Bedore Lakes, to come and sit at their wharf and do our topmast work there. Top right is, you can see all their sailing club kids have come and spent some time on the ship, get to ask questions and see what's going on. More drills is going into Liverpool. The Brooklyn Yacht Club hosted the crew there, had a barbecue, some beverages for them, and then there's one lonely Canadian flag in the middle of the woods there. There's one of our store staff who lived nearby, and she fought her way down to the beach and flown a Canadian flag for us. On to Yarmouth. The tourism board bought the crew pizza. This is becoming a food tour year for the Bluenose crew. I think they think that this is how life works, is that we just travel places and people bring us gifts. But there is work in between. And then from Yarmouth, we set sail up St. Mary's Bay, again put up topsails and sailed through Petite Passage with topsails set. Again, I think Petite Passage is 250 feet wide in the narrowest places, so it's one of those places that once you go in, you know you're going to have to come out the other end. From Petite Passage, we sailed overnight into Digby, carried some sail into Digby, and someone bought us a feed of scallops for the crew. Again, the food tour continues. We had a young woman that joined us in the fall of the year. Some of our students go back and we hire fall fill-ins, we call them, that come and join us. And so this young woman joined us in Yarmouth, and that was her whole view of Bluenose life. Was you're here, someone brings you pizza, you set topsails, you go through beautiful scenery, you get scallops. She lived in Disney World life, and I think there's a video coming up in a minute of her on her first harbor cruise as well. So from there, we've come back around the tip of the province, and we're in Pubnico. More training. You can see the mate in the bottom right here is training some of the young crew on. We use that rubber boat as a push boat in small ports. So he's training them how to use the push boat, how to maneuver quickly. And then, lovely thing, this young woman in the left, there was a busload from a senior citizens home came, and she was up standing at the end of the gangway. I didn't have to say a word. Up and into the bus she goes, talking to the people that couldn't come off the bus, talking about her experiences, talking about the ship, and making sure that they felt welcomed. And I think that's just, you can't train that, although we push it. It was lovely for me to see. It really was. And not only did she stand in the front of the bus, she went around to the back of the bus and talked to the people at the back of the bus as well. So, back to Lunenburg. The Red Surge came and joined us. That's all the Mounties from the South Shore. They came and couldn't figure out why all the people were on the dock until they came around the corner. And then I think this is Amy on the left. And this is her first harbor cruise. So she's the young lady that joined us that got pizza, that got scallops, that carried topsails everywhere, had this lovely sail down the coast. And her first harbor cruise, we're blasting out of Lunenburg at 10 knots or more with a deck load of people, and she's on the wheel. Imagine that, your first week on the Bluenose, and that's your experience. Yeah. Yeah. Life was pretty good. It was good enough that she came back and joined us again this year. But she gets to do the first 2 months now and realize that maybe it's not all that much fun. The young fella on the left there he was our 50,000th visitor. That was in Sambro for the year. Last year we had 60,000 people visit the ship. We took 7,500 people out sailing. I'm keeping an eye on the time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit, right, Jenny? From Sambro into St. Margaret's Bay, and a lovely video here taken by alumni, Raindancer, whose son is working on the ship right now. So again, topsails. This is a bit of training for the second mate. He's got the con of the vessel, and if you know St. Margaret's Bay, at the head of St. Margaret's Bay, there's Potato and Strawberry Island. I think it's 700 or 800 feet between them, and he got to take the ship under full sail through that little gap. So he wasn't saying much, and he was dancing from foot to foot, but he managed to do it. Through? Yeah. over from St. Margaret's Bay, go all the way up into the head of the bay, tack around, come back out, and find some reprobates from the museum in French Village and a little white boat there. I think these guys just can't get enough of wooden ships, and it was lovely for them to come out and welcome us. And then Mr. Wag, who's sitting in the back this evening, he took the top photo there 40 years ago, am I right? 40 years ago, last year. And Blair, who was deckhand, had gone in to be bosun, agreed to come back. He still lives here. He's had a full career with the Power Corp. I guess climbing masts on the Bluenose and climbing power poles were much the same. So 40 years later, those two got together and retook the photo. Well, you may do it, but I won't be there. We talked about the alumni. These guys, I pray that these guys make friends that will last forever. This is my crowd that I started with. I still talk to them all. There's one of them sitting in the back tonight, thankfully not heckling me yet. HMCS Oriole is often around. We often sail with her when we can. She's in Lunenburg doing a big refit now, and we love to see her when she comes into port. I think she's moving away from Halifax maybe, but we'll have to see. Anyway, they came and their captain came and did a talk with us in Lunenburg a couple of weeks ago, months ago now, I guess. And then weather, at that time of the year, we're starting to look at weather. We're watching weather all the time, but you're starting to look at the big hurricanes that are coming. That changes what we do and how we do it, obviously. That's the season. We're done season. It's gone through in a flash. What we say is long days and short weeks. So you got some days that you're just tired because it's 7 days a week, it's relentless. And then it's over, it's done. So we've got 2 weeks to strip the ship down and get it ready for winter. The entire hamper, the sails come off in 1 day. If the sails are dry, we get them off, we get them folded, and we get them in the shed so that they're dry for the day, dry for the year, that we don't have to worry about drying them. Try and do a project in the fall. Last year, we stripped off the foredeck. So we try and do that probably every 10 years. We strip the decks back and put new oil on them. You think if we're getting 60,000 people a day plus, or year, plus sailing, so that's 600,000 people walk across the decks. So people ask if we're happy with the product that we use, and I can resoundingly say yes. You can see here, the frame is put on the ship. Took a picture of the photographer of that. He's a young guy. That last year was his second year. So he's quite happy to climb up high up the loft as he can and take those pictures. On the bottom right is Dale the cook. He's doing a barbecue for the crew every once in a while. We let him escape from the galley and cook for us somewhere else. It's quite a treat, I think. And then the guy in the yellow jacket is Greg Ingalls. He's a lovely guy. We have a mobile museum that travels around, and he will go out and meet people. He'll stand there all day and talk to people and tell them stories and interpret the ship. And then he'll get in the truck, our big truck, and hook up the trailer and travel to the next port and do it all over again day after day. He'll stand on the wharf, he'll catch our lines, and he's a huge asset to us and to what we do. So everything comes off the ship. Anchors, all the blocks are labeled. Everything is labeled in a different color. So the foremast gears is maybe yellow and the mainmast gear may be blue. The topmast could be orange. It's all put away. So if something happens to all of us, somebody else can come back in and hopefully put the schooner in a box back together again. And then one day, all these young people that you just spent 6 months with are gone. They hug briefly on the wharf. I suspect they say goodbye to me and not to each other. I think there's usually many beer and lies told about what goes on. That's it. That's a year. So it's been 40 minutes, I guess. And yeah, this picture was taken by a lovely guy by the name of Michael Kim in Lunenburg. He photographs Lunenburg. He photographs the crew. He gets to know the crew. And every once in a while, he'll do something like he'll show up with a bag of apples. And I was in the valley. I wanted you guys to have this. I bought some chips for you guys. Here, have the chips. Hey, I got 2 buckets of lobster. Here you go. And then he sends all these pictures that he takes away back to Korea and his home and to out west and promoting Lunenburg and trying to get people to come here. It's incredible. And I think, yeah, I wish I could say more about him. On to the very last slide. You can see there's someone else from the Fisheries Museum coming up. I shamelessly grabbed that from Instagram, so you can see that's why there's someone else's tag on there. And then if you're interested, the African Nova Scotia Seafaring Project is a project that's been in the ongoing for 3 or 4 years, trying to do the research. They're having their opening in Shelburne at the Black Loyalist Heritage Center on the 30th. So if you're interested in this stuff, if you're interested in going to sea, I think that's a great part of the story that's coming. What you guys can do, we'll get to questions in just a second. Ask the people online and you guys, if you guys could interact with the ship. I don't know if you're probably all aware that we had a massive budget cut this year. Our budget was cut by 20%, right? So varnish is not cheaper, food's not cheaper, nothing that we do is cheaper, but we're doing it with less. So often the way that we measure success in the modern days is not the 60,000 people across the decks, it's the 1 million likes on Facebook, right? It's the people that interact with Instagram, with TikTok, with X or Twitter or whatever. So if you can do that, that all helps us. Yeah, and if you can come and see us, if we can make it. We had a meeting with tourism a couple of years ago where we had 61,000 one year, and we had like 60,400 the next, and they asked us to explain why we thought we had fewer people on board. Like, do the best we can. Do the best we can. All right, that's a year. How do we handle seasickness? Lean far over the rail on the leeward side. That's, you know, we do gravol and we do all those things, ginger ale, ginger mints. Sometimes it's just a fact of life, it's just gonna happen. For myself, I find if I'm excessively worried, if we leave at night, if I don't have a chance to sort of relax into it, I'm much more likely to be seasick. And the other problem is, you know, we could go out in a big rough sea, like the one that we saw, and then you're in port for 10 days doing harbor tours, so you just lose whatever you gained, and then you have to go back out in it again. So you have to relearn it again. Hopefully as time goes on, that relearning period comes shorter and shorter. But we have had crew that have discovered that they are massively seasick, and the funny feeling that they had on the Halifax ferry going back and forth was actually seasickness. So they'll be sick at the dock eating breakfast.
So gravol?
Gravol, ginger gravol, ginger ale, ginger mints, sleep. I don't know. I've thrown up with it all on, so I can't tell you. In the back in the red hat.
Yeah, thanks so much for preserving so much of our heritage. That's great. I just had a question about the causeway. So when you go through the Cancel Causeway, you remove the top part of the mast.
Yes. So the question is,
Does it take so long to put it back up that you decide to leave it down?
so the question is about going through the causeway, about the wire that causes us to drop our topmast. We have to hang block and tackle over the top of the lowermost and lift up the mast, so everything has to be cast off. So at some point in there, it's just hanging from a 1-inch rope. And then it starts to slam from side to side to side. But really difficult to do, even anchored. If you're not nose into the swell, it becomes very difficult. We were at anchor in Liverpool last year, and the ship was rolling way in by the old mill in Liverpool, and we were rolling 10 degrees each side, which means the top of the mast was 40 feet back and forth. So you're at the bottom of the pendulum upside down. So we have done it at anchor. I'd probably never even attempted at sea.
But is it a long process to do it?
It's the first time, yes, because we have to explain everything. We'll be, like this year, our foretopmast is laying on the wharf, so we'll actually pick it off the wharf ourselves and push it up through the mast. You can't do it with you can't lower it down from a helicopter. It has to be pulled up through. So that'll take us probably the best part of a day. To lower a topmast with an experienced crew, we'll probably do it in a couple of hours. I think when we were in Port Hawkesbury, to put the topmast back up, we shot it up in a couple of hours, and then and we're able to leave before dark. So it does take some time, and you have to be patient with the skill level of the crew that are doing it. Questions from online? There must be thousands of people watching us here, aren't there? Maybe 40. 30. No questions from online?
Did you say that a lot of the kids who get coming on aren't experienced people?
Yeah, so the question is, do the crew that come on have experience? And the answer is absolutely not. My personal mantra is that I can teach nice people to sail, but I cannot teach sailors to be nice. Right? Our crew will spend more time talking about sailing the ship than they ever will sailing the ship. Their principal job is to be ambassadors for the province, to be ambassadors for the ship. And looking for nice young people that will represent the ship, will represent all of us well to the public. On top of that, they have to be technically proficient, and we put them through those paces. But if you've got a bunch of nice young people and they're all pulling in the same direction, they will learn, and they'll learn very quickly. I don't need one rock star. One rock star doesn't do me any good at all. Right? I need a bunch of nice young people. They're going to get together along in the galley. They're going to pull together. They're going to help each other on deck. It makes all the world a difference. Weather routing, I use predict wind. So the question is about weather routing and what do I do about the weather. I make Maggie's life miserable because I'm quite happy to say I'm going to leave 24 hours early, I'm leaving 24 hours late, I can't go any further. I'm stuck. I spent 18 hours one time going up and down, as we say, you're going up and down 5 knots and ahead 1 knot off Halifax. It doesn't make any sense. The crew are sick, you're beating the ship up, your increased risk goes up, and it's not doing anybody any good. So I'll just go and anchor. I'll find a nice quiet cove. I'll say, Maggie, I'm pulling the plug, I'm going to anchor, and then they've got to deal with all the complaints because I was late or I wasn't where I said I was going to be or whatever. When I was a young guy, I was standing on the wharf just before a harbor cruise, and I was agonizing about whether to go or not. And a guy walked up to me and said, "You're trying to make the decision, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "You're better off to be sitting on the runway wishing you were in the air than being in the air and wishing you were on the runway." Well, I've carried that. That made the decision easy after that. And every once in a while we'll get caught. And again, depends which direction you're going. Like if we're running with it, I'll put the ship and the crew through much more than doing that. But if I'm not going to make any headway against it, then I just won't. It's just, yeah, it's not my boat. It's your boat. Yeah.
So I have to ask, so all the new people, they don't have to go through like a test for seasickness or anything like that?
No, there's no test for seasickness. We'll find out pretty quickly. We all know. And it's better actually, we prefer that they don't hide it. We like to know that people are seasick, rather than trying to hide that they're seasick and becoming increasingly weak and being a danger to themselves. So there's no shame in it. It's happened to all of us. It's either you have been seasick or you're going to be seasick. It's just life. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry about that because I am a tanner from Lunenburg and I'm the only one in my whole family that has seasickness.
Yeah. I would encourage you to spend as much time as you can on a boat, and yes, yeah, get used to it. Yeah. We hire as many Nova Scotians as we can, but we open it up to people across the country. So if it comes down to a Nova Scotian or someone from away, then it's the Nova Scotian, guaranteed. I think the province pays 40% of our operating budget now, so it's the taxpayers' kids that get to go. But that being said, we had 100 applications last year. Maybe 100 people applied to be on the ship. So, that's not everybody. Jenny?
I have
2
2 questions.
questions, a 2-parter.
So this season, how many ports call are you having, and what is the age range of the crew, or is there one, or the youngest that you've had, for 25 years as well?
So the first question was the ports that we're going to? I can't tell you. I have no idea.
Be careful.
14? Okay, 14 ports. We're in Halifax a couple of times. We're here for Sail GP. We're here for the Maritime Festival. We're in Arashat. Yeah, not going through into Northumberland Strait, not going into the Bedore Lakes. Yeah. So, and then, sorry, the second question was?
Is there an age range?
Is there an age range? Basically, they have to be 19. If they're 18, I'm responsible for them. I'm responsible for them anyway. I don't know, you can imagine the sleepless nights I have being responsible for 14 people that are out at the pub doing karaoke. So 19 is the youngest. The office likes to say 30. I like to pull it back a bit from that, just because of the interactions between a 30-year-old and a 19-year-old, and they're different. I prefer the people, they seem to get on better if they're closer in age. But not that I won't take a 30-year-old, it's just, I prefer if they're 22 or 23 and they're moldable. And yeah, so we certainly have had people, you know, their parents dropped them off, it's the first time away from home. So that's the whole thing.
Homesick and not just seasick.
Yes, homesick and seasick. Yeah. Question from online.
Wondering if you're looking forward to attending Sail 250 in Boston, and what you're most anticipating. What you're most anticipating about taking part in the event.
So asking if I'm looking forward to Sail 250 in Boston. Absolutely. You know, a chance to sail with a fleet of big ships, to represent the country, to put that 15 by 30 foot Canadian flag up, 100%. Politics aside, you know, doing tall ships is a fantastic thing. It gives our crew a chance to meet other ships' crews. It gets a chance for them to see where they are. It gets a chance for us to see how does Bluenose measure up to another boat. Are we good? Are we bad? I personally look at Pride of Baltimore, and if we can have the same sort of appearance and show as Pride of Baltimore, then I'm a pretty happy guy. We don't have the big Navy budgets of the big white fleet. You know, I'd be just as happy if we had gone down to Norfolk and worked our way back up the coast and done the whole thing with the whole fleet. Great time at sea for the crew. Great piloting skills for the mates. You don't necessarily get that when we're doing harbor cruises. So it becomes, you know, doing those long passages and times in foreign ports becomes important for the training abilities of the crew and of the mates. Yeah, and a headache for Maggie, who's got to do the logistics for it all. Yeah. So, and the second part was what I'm most looking forward to. I think, you know, sail, you know, hopefully 3 or 4 days under sail on the way to Boston, and hopefully a rip-roaring sail back. We had a great sail back with the Oriole one time we were in Boston, and they put online that when it, you know, they're sort of around us just off Boston, so whenever 2 ships are going in the same direction, it's a race. And okay, so we were in and tied up before they came into Lunenburg, and I made sure that the entire crew was standing on the stern to make sure they had a proper welcome in. And I think one of the alumni is here tonight that was on that trip, and I think it was 30 knots when we rounded up outside of Lunenburg. Yeah, with the 4 lowers up, we pushed the ship hard and had a rip-roaring sail. And I thought we were doing really well. And then the Eagle and one of the South American square riggers, the fog parted around Cape Sable, and the 2 of them were racing for national pride for themselves. And the fog parted, and we could see the 2 of them with big bones in their teeth, and they left us behind. It was that's something I'll remember for a long time. So the question is, the crew that we'd hired, did they only do the 1 season? No. Yes. It's a double-edged sword. We have to train them. We have to pay to train them. It costs money. So, and it's a heartache for the mates to have to relearn everybody every year. But at the same time, we're trying to give as many young people a chance to be on board as possible. So, you know, you have some people, our longest serving right now is 3 years, I think. We have 2 women that are in their 2nd year, and 1 that was in the fall of last year. So 4 of them will say we're back, and the 10 are new. It's a double-edged sword, and then, you know, you become quite fond of these young people that are there, all of them, and you realize that they have to go so that you can have the next people to be fond of come back in. So we all worry about young people now, and I've got a great seat to see young people every year and to see what they can do and what they can accomplish and how fantastic they are. And that's one of the joys of my job is to see them succeed and go from not knowing anything to setting a topsail or whatever. Yeah. So the question is, has there been changes to the ship to meet regulatory requirements? Absolutely, 100%. From number of life rafts to the type of immersion suits, to the type of life jackets, to the electronics. In the last rebuild, bulkheads removed, absolutely, to make her have single compartment subdivision. So yeah, 100%. We live, as far as the regulatory people are concerned, we are just a cargo ship when we're traveling and a passenger ship in the ports. So my thing is that they've put a space shuttle inside a Model T Ford. So we have to have all that regulatory. And when I said that we had 2 telex machines, I'm serious. We have 2 telex, satellite telex machines to be able to communicate with shore that we don't particularly use, but they're there for regulatory reasons. So 14 knots, the question is what's the calculated hull speed? It's 14 knots-ish, and when you lean her over, your waterline length grows a bit, so you can get a little bit better out of that. I will probably chicken out before we reach maximum hull speed. We'll sail her to, like, say, 15 degrees, which is deck edge immersion, so that means that the edge of the deck is in the water. And I'll do that with passengers on board. I'll do that with just the crew. Probably never going to sail her much more than that. I think in his folder somewhere, Mr. Wag has a picture of us maybe with the rail buried briefly, but that's not, I'm not real comfortable with that. When things go wrong at that time, all of a sudden, if you break a spar, then you've got a telephone pole swinging around, and we're not highly trained crew. We've been there for 4 months. So you go right back to so you're good at that stage until something goes wrong, and then we're learning something that we've never done before, like that. So that becomes, I call myself the chicken of the sea. I'm a conservative guy. Push sometimes, but I'm well aware of where we are in our training, and that is not my boat. Right. Oh, so if we could roll along at 10, 11 knots, that would be great. Open sea, if you're on, if it's 25 knots, and that's lovely. And again, if you're pounding into it, once the seas get up 8 or 10 feet, then we're not going anywhere. The hull's just going to slam, and you can, bear off, but then you're just making speed in the wrong direction. And, yeah. So let's comfort. The cook stops cooking about 10 degrees of heel, so remember that as well. Any more online questions? All right. I think that would put us over time. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for spending some time. Now go home and cheer on Montreal.